will begin shortly. Enjoy.
여러분은 곧 Your Brain on Air 프로그램을 시청하실 수 있습니다. 프로그램이 곧 시작됩니다. 즐기세요.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Your Brain on Air. I'm your host, Ollie Volt Larson. And if Mondays were supposed to be fun, they'd call them fun days. Isn't that right? Isn't that something your dad would tell you? That's right. I wanted to start it off with a nice one. We got a nice little ditty, a brand new show anthem, because our last one got recognized by copyright fucking AI or whatever. Hopefully this one that we picked is not going to be, too modern day for them, as in like 1930s, excuse me, because our last one apparently was too modern for them. It was apparently, the artist still had rights over it, even though he's been dead. I looked it up for the last 30 years. But apparently he's insistent on copyright claiming my video. But listen, I don't even make a profit from this show, so I'd love to say it doesn't affect me. It doesn't. It hurts my ego. That's the only thing that it does. Folks, welcome back to another broadcast of Your Brain on Air. It's December 8th. Can you believe it? From the time that it was Thanksgiving to now, hasn't it felt like nothing? Hasn't it felt like absolutely nothing? There's so much happening in our lives. There's so many things going on in the news. It feels like there's never any quiet day nowadays. And then again, that's how every time feels in our lives. It's just, it's relative. It's relative. That's exactly how it always will be and always has been. But folks, I feel good about today. It's a nice one. You know what I mean? The weather is decent. Things are looking up. Things are looking good in life, honestly, and I hope that they are looking the same for you. But folks, we got a lot to talk about. There's some things happening here and there, some things local, some international, some, out of the White House. We don't know. There's a lot of things happening, but I'm going to condense quite a few of them into a manageable, a little parcel for you. And then we're going to just talk about random things because there's a lot to talk about in this world, isn't there? First things first, we got to get a little bit of the serious stuff out of the way because I don't, it's a Monday and it wouldn't be that if there wasn't some serious stuff to talk about. Folks, Augsburg University, you might know it if you're from the cities or if you're relative to that area, if you know people that have gone to school in that area. Some of them probably have gone there. They have had an ice confrontation amid rising Twin City tensions. Folks, this is spooky. Just recently, Augsburg University, Minneapolis, listen, out of all the universities down there, I would say it's, not exactly prestiged. It's held in the higher regards than certain other ones where, it's better than a community college, let's put it that way. They have experienced a sudden alarming confrontation, you know what I mean? A group of armed, masked ICE agents did what they normally do. They did. South Park represented it great when they plowed into heaven. That's kind of how they show up in most instances. They are like asking questions. They are not exactly polite about it in most instances. They were, they're seen by campus in the campus parking lot, and then a witness reported that they pointed weapons at students and staff who were happened to be nearby. Many other students watched the incident unfold from their residence hall windows. The university later confirmed that its own Department of Public Safety asked the agents to show judicial warrant, a requirement for federal immigration enforcement inside many school settings, but none were presented. If you don't know the whole situation, schools are considered one of those private settings, like your home or a private area at work. They cannot enter those areas without a judicial signed warrant by a judge. You should know your rights, you should know how to comply and everything like that, but you should always comply. You should never try to run, you should never try to do any of that. You should always be like, am I free to go? That's the best way to comply with it. And if you're a citizen, hopefully we'll get you out of a prison in 6 months. That tends to be that's the average that we get you out, you know what I mean? Augsburg issued a strongly worded statement. It described the incident as unacceptable, dangerous, and profoundly disturbing. Administrators emphasized that while the university regularly cooperates with local law enforcement, because they have a lot of, if you don't know, the cities, the college setting, it's already known for being where people from small towns get a little rowdy. You place it in a bigger city like the Twin Cities, you're going to get a little more rowdy. So yes, they do routinely work with local law enforcement because there's kids throwing couches out of windows still nowadays, weirdly enough, you know what I mean? Except they're not drinking like they did in those old movies. They're doing ketamine and psychedelics, and they're all on nootropics, and they're all listening to Joe Rogan, so they're all doing protein powder, which means that they can lift 10 times the amount of furniture, and they can go running longer, they can run faster, jump higher, all that stuff. They're creating Wolverine men, unfortunately, that are being powered by these pseudo-stimulants and whatnot. So obviously, they're like, we work with local law enforcement all the time, but we cannot be, I don't feel like we need to be putting border control in the university halls. That's just maybe some of their perspectives. They said the presence of unidentified, heavily armed federal agents conducting operations without a warrant was unprecedented on their campus. This has never happened before. The school also stressed that such an encounter created an environment of fear and confusion among students, many of whom were unaware of what was happening or whether they were at personal risk. I mean, listen, if ICE shows up, I don't know what else to tell you except for it's a little bit Stasi-like. I'm sorry I'm not trying to make the fascism comparisons. It's you got to stay inside. You have to bar the windows. You have to tell your children, you whisper in your accent or your little language that nobody else can understand, and then you tell them to go hide under the floorboards. It's a little bit, you know what I mean? They can't enter your home without a warrant, and most of the time they don't have a warrant, unless, of course, you really do have something to worry about, in which case a lot of people will go, well, you're deporting our neighbors and things like that. And a lot of folks, they've lived in my neighborhood for the last 20 years. They've been my neighbor for the last 20 years. They've never been a criminal or anything like that. And then the argument for that, of course, is like, well, if they've been here for 20 years, what has stopped them from becoming a citizen, going through the means of citizenship, all of that sort of stuff? And of course, nobody ever has an answer for that. You know what I mean? It's just sort of people forget, you know what I mean? You know how you forget to pay your insurance sometimes, or like maybe you forget a bill here and there, and it's like, no, otherwise they would shut my water off. And then you're like, well, they just forget sometimes, and it's like they don't have the time to do it, and it's like that's a pretty lousy excuse. And admittedly, like the people who have been here for an inordinate amount of times, who haven't taken care of their citizenship, don't really have an excuse. If you are that kind of a situation, I'd understand being worried. You should really be pulling the curtains over your head. You should be really nervous. But otherwise, if you have nothing to worry about, if you're just darker, if you have a little bit of the melanin, if you sleep well at night, if you take the melanin gummies, then you're gonna be a little more at risk, unfortunately, because that's how it is. There's profiling going on. And at colleges of all places, you're showing up and you're like, look, Project 2025 was to get a girlfriend, was to get ripped, was to do all of that. I was not interested in like bringing back trad wives or anything like that. I was interested in like, I think a lot of men on college campuses, the last thing they're interested in is banning abortion, because that would derail a lot of their personal plans. Listen, there's a lot of people that are they're more liberal leaning when you really start bringing out the effects of policy on these people. I don't think a lot of college age people are really interested in paying a lot of money for overseas gaming devices like PS5s. I don't think anybody's interested in that. Local news outlets, they reported that the Minneapolis Police Department officials were aware of ICE activity in the city, but did not cooperate or participate in the Augsburg operation. As a result, both campus public safety and the city authorities began reviewing the incident and determining whether federal agents acted within law or whether proper procedures had been followed. ICE, for its part, did not immediately release a public statement of information about the justification for the operation, the student circumstances, or the lack of a judicial warrant. They're just kind of... they're showing up and they're going, we just want to pull people out of their classrooms, and essentially, which is, that's a great spot. You don't get people at a more sensitive and vulnerable moment. Like, they're not going to be ready to run. They're in the middle of worrying about whether or not they're going to pass their final. And right now, dude, this is deadly season to be doing this shit at universities, because it is the crunch season between Thanksgiving and Christmas. college students listening to this right now, you know exactly what I'm saying, and students in general, you know that it's test after test after test, rubric after summary, after all of these things, essays, all of this. They're piling it on because they want to get it in through the holidays. They want to figure it all out. They want to hash all this out. You're stressed out to the gills. You're getting homework every night. You're doing all this. You're going to meet your professors and shit. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, because your name might be, I don't know, Farouk or Ramin or something, you might get your arm pinned behind your back. And that's not... Is that a country we want to live in? I don't think so. Do we want to live in a country with immigration enforcement? To an extent. But to this extent, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't... Like, going up to people on the streets, demanding their papers doesn't look great. I think we need to go back to an Obama era of over abusing the sheriff system in order to hold people in detention centers. We need to use those types of systems where it goes under the radar. And Obama was the deporter in chief, and we did it without sparking all of this public debate. I agree that is kind of the angle we got to go. We got to get him out, but we got to do it quietly. That's what we got to do. Folks, let's just listen to this report right here. This is interesting.
Tonight, Augsburg University says their community is, quote, deeply shaken. This after they say masked ICE agents targeted an undergraduate student on campus.
A viewer who sent us video of the incident says it unfolded around 4 p.m. yesterday, and they did see somebody detained. Fox 9 has not yet been able to independently confirm that. Additionally, Augsburg says agents aimed weapons at witnesses, including staff and students on campus. In a statement, Augsburg said that these tactics, with the implicit threat of violence, are unacceptable, dangerous, and profoundly disturbing.
In this footage, one of these poor students, they're driving a PT Cruiser, and I just look at them and I think, oh Jesus, they're not making them, but you're still able to drive that. That's really sad.
And this is just the latest incident involving ICE in the Twin Cities and questions about how they conduct their raids.
Fox 9's Leon Purvis asked an immigration attorney, and he joins us now with their answer to what ICE can and cannot do in these situations. Leon?
What I like about Fox 9, I picked this segment because they had footage that I can reference, and they had someone breaking down a legal analysis of this. Essentially, what I love about these fucking idiots on modern TV and everything like that, right wing or left, they always manage to keep the Christmas motif. They always manage to keep the decorations up in the background. They could be talking about anything. There could be another 9/11 happening like on Christmas Day, and you would still see Wolf Blitzer with a Christmas tree up in the background going, mass executions have occurred all across this country, everything like that. He could be reporting the fall and the collapse of the nation on Jesus' birthday, even though he was really born in August or April. It's debated by historic biblical scholars and everything. It's kind of ridiculous. It's the commitment to, it's like it's the white mom effect. It's like you're a senator. My husband's a senator, so we're gonna pose for Christmas cards this year with all of our kids and our dog holding M16s, and it's just for the brand. It's for the brand. I love that about the modern news. They always keep up the motif. Rachel Maddow could be reporting about another mass, like they went through and they blew up every preschool, and she would still have like red bows draped across her desk.
Well, Randy Kelsey, the immigration attorney I spoke with, says the key is that ICE was outside the residence hall. But the other key is if ICE doesn't have a judicial warrant, you don't have to comply.
The public just can't walk into the school hallways. Well, there's no reason why an ICE officer can do the same. And so if they want to get in, they can either get a warrant or they can wait outside. They can't come in the building.
Now, according to David Wilson, if ICE shows up without a judicial warrant, you don't have to answer any questions. You can ask them if they have one.
ICE is often just probing and trying to find out if someone is there. And so often people volunteer information when they really don't have to do that.
Now, there are potentially two different warrants ICE could show you. They can show you an ICE warrant or a judicial one. According to Wilson, with the ICE warrant, you can't interfere, but you don't have to facilitate in finding someone.
An ICE warrant will have ICE's annotation saying this is a notice from ICE. It could be a notice of inspection. It could be an administrative subpoena. A judicial warrant will be signed by a judge. It will have a seal on it. it'll be very clear that a judge has reviewed it compared to an ICE officer signing it over at Fort Snelling.
The bottom line, if they're on public property, ICE can be there without a warrant. Live in studio, Leon Purvis, Fox 9.
All right, Leon, thank you. Dr.
There you go, folks. Really fascinating, right? I mean, fascinating to me, something we all need to talk about. But folks, I think we need to take a break for an ad, because why not? I need a sponsorship, and you all would love to take a break from the actual seriousness of the world. Introducing Oracle AI, the last product you will ever need, the last product humanity will ever deserve. Why settle for ordinary prediction engines? You know, those things, large language models that essentially look through analogs of history, everything that we've written down in the last quarter century, and they make comparative predictions in order to facilitate where markets are moving, all that sort of stuff. Folks, why have any of that when you can have the first AI device built out of lithium-ion divination nodes, quantum-etched glass conduits, and electrically agitated reality movers? The Oracle AI does not just forecast the future, it opens the file directory. Every morning, Oracle AI downloads fresh timelines from the multiverse cloud and arranges them into a convenient best possible outcome, worst case possible, and probably what you'll actually do folders. This is an incredible remote viewing FFT translation matrix to scrape visions from shimmering edges of space-time where forgotten civilizations scream truth into the cosmic wind. Through advanced signal processing and total disregard for ethical boundaries, Oracle AI extracts the statistically relevant frequencies from those screams and converts them into actionable notifications to your phone. Isn't this incredible? Don't worry, Oracle AI has already predicted your concerns. Worried about privacy? Oracle AI can see those thoughts before you think them. Or are you concerned about security? Oracle has already infiltrated every vision of your future, and the reports already evaluate that you will embrace the Oracle. Are you anxious about becoming dependent? Too late. Oracle AI, its metaphysical predictive coil synchronizes with your circadian rhythms after 12 hours of proximity, ensuring that you will feel mild nausea every time you attempt decision-making without it. This is not a flaw, it's synergy. So plug in, surrender your timeline, and marvel at the miracle humanity has created from rocks, sand, and chemical batteries. Through the alchemy of computation, we have forged the digital crystal ball that sees what lies ahead and what lies beyond. Oracle AI, the future is no longer unpredictable. It's just deeply, profoundly unsettling. Folks, let's go ahead and let's read this next story. We got a recent anecdote spread. This is it's run amok across our country, possibly heading a strong flu, hinting at the idea that there might be a strange yet unidentified throat virus. This happens every year, but this is just comparatively strange. This is not like we're experiencing a new COVID or anything like that, but there is an recent amount on social media and anecdotal reports. Many have described a wave of illnesses that have been described as very painful, kind of a scratchy throat, sometimes described as razor blades, sand, other sorts of rusty, rough compounds, along with cold or flu-like symptoms, congestion, cough, fatigue, body aches, and sometimes dizziness or nausea. These reports have gained enough traction that some platforms have dubbed the phenomenon the 2025 throat virus. It's spreading everywhere on TikTok, Reddit threads, Quora, however you pronounce it. That one website where a lot of, unks go. However, public health and expert reporting indicate that there's no confirmed new virus identified by a major disease surveillance agency. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, even though a lot of people are going like, we don't trust them anymore, the CDC's evil. A lot of people are saying that nowadays, and you know what I mean? That if you want to have that opinion, you can have that opinion. That's you know what? Who am I to judge you? Who am I to judge? Overall, acute respiratory illness activity across the U.S. remains low as of early December. The CDC continues to track known pathogens, including COVID-19, influenza, the flu, respiratory syncytial virus, RSV, and other viruses that they have, rather than and flag a mysterious new pathogen. One possible explanation, a known but less noticed virus may be circulating at a higher rate, overlapping with the flu and COVID seasons. A lot of people don't even realize we're just living with COVID now. COVID, it went from being this very bizarre kind of reason for us all to stay home with our families. And, we traveled in our pods. Our pods were our car, and we would I remember driving through downtown of my listen, it's not a little town, but it's an average size. It's whatever. It's outside of a major metro area. It's not anything like that, but it's a decent sized little place. And, I was driving through this area that's normally bustling on it was Wednesdays, anytime of the day, you would see people walking up and down the street. You'd see cars moving, you'd see activity in the stores, anything, and it was just barren. It was the major lockdown order. Minnesota was one of the harshest states with the lockdowns. It was ridiculous. It was incredibly overdone. Listen, I'm not against the idea that it was necessary for a certain point. Absolutely it was. We needed to flatten the curve as much as we could. We needed to, absolutely, I understand that there's levels of public health that we have to listen to. But the degree that they did this, where they were closing public areas like the park, they were closing beaches, they were closing areas where it's you're not near people at public parks, you're not near all of these sorts of things when you're walking your dog. And there was mask mandates for areas that were quite frankly ridiculous, especially when we look back and we realize that the mask transmission rate didn't really reduce it dramatically. And there was also legitimate concerns about whether or not the vaccine was rushed too quickly, whether or not there's genuine concern, whether the amount of adverse effects that there were given to people. That's exactly why we were all forced to sit there for 15 minutes after we all got it, because some people were dropping from heart attacks immediately. We can talk about these things now because I think we're significantly out of it. I don't think anybody's gotten a COVID vaccine or a flu vaccine since 2020. I personally haven't. I've done it. I got the COVID vaccine as the understanding was we're going to be able to go back to the normalcy. We're going to go back to the way that things were. And honestly, I think that's what it should have been treated as, and it hasn't been ever since then, unfortunately. It's been treated... The one socialist convention that Zohran Mamdani once attended didn't attend this year, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I think he was trying to better his odds for winning. But they required, in 2025, a COVID test, a negative COVID test, in order to attend the con. 5 years out from this fucking disease, and these people are still demanding it. They're still demanding that you have a COVID test and whatnot. It was certain people, and I'm not saying all, I'm not saying it was Fauci or anything like that, but certain individuals, especially certain state powers and everything, would use this disease in order to conquer areas of public behavior that they weren't able to before this. There was a level of guilt shaming. There was a level of public interest that they had to where if you had any questions about their programs for the disease, they didn't have any. You were labeled a bad person for questioning these things. You were labeled somebody who wanted to kill old people, all of those sorts of things. And I was a part of it. I was part of the indoctrinated side where I was incredibly shameful of people who didn't have the vaccine. I was incredibly in on that side. My entire family got vaccinated, everything like that. And, I don't believe that there's anything wrong with our position, as it was for the sake of everybody else. We had a family that were a little on the older side, especially due to the fact that we wanted to hang out. You know what I mean? We wanted to be with our family again. And if we have to have this vaccine to reduce the transmission rate, even though it didn't really do that, if we have to have this vaccine in order to ensure that we're all clean and we're all going to be good in order to spend time with one another, that I was willing to do that. I was willing to do that, especially due to the fact that it was really raging at the time, or at least it was enough to where we all shut our lives down for that entire year. There's a lot to be said about the COVID era, and maybe an entire episode can be done on it. But honestly, and the COVID seasons are now a thing. Flu, it ravaged the world quite a few times in a few big waves, the Spanish flu, everything. And now flu season is just a thing. COVID season is just a thing. It could be this, honestly, COVID could be causing these sort of symptoms for people. If you're not smelling anything, that's pretty obvious. It could be SARS-CoV-2. remain active. They're not as active as certain other bacteria, as flu or other respiratory illnesses. They remain active, though they generally cause a mild to moderate illness. Never anything is regarded as painful as most people are describing it, as sore throats. What's it called? Nimbus studies have been associated with very sore throats described by victims as severely painful. That said, medical professionals have also so far not confirmed the distinct 2025 throat virus, reporting suggesting that the throat virus may be a simple mix of typical winter respiratory viruses overlapping with flu, COVID, RSV, and others, rather than a brand new pathogen for us all to worry about. For now, experts recommend treating symptoms as you would any other respiratory illness: rest, hydration, good hygiene, staying home when you're sick, and seeking care if symptoms worse. Best idea. I mean, people are going to be talking about this. If we get a lot more conversation about it, if they're testing for things, people are saying they're going into the doctor and they're testing for everything and it's not showing positive for anything. So, Hopefully this is just another odd, weird variant of the cold. Not anything major to worry about, folks. I hope. I'm not going to make any promises, because then I will be called fake news. But folks, I think we need to hop into the rapid fire section of today's headlines. There's too much to talk about for us not to go ahead and do it. The Supreme Court, people. The Supreme Court of the United States greenlights new congressional map of Texas, major boost for Republicans, as they have issued an emergency order allowing Texans to newly redraw the congressional map for the 2026 midterms, a map widely regarded as favorable to the Republican Party. That map, paused by a lower court over concerns of racial gerrymandering, now is reinstated, potentially boosting the GOP chances for up to 5 new House seats. Interesting for them. Netflix this deal is moving forward, people. They have agreed to buy Warner Brothers Discovery Studios and streaming unit, and it's been reduced around $72 billion, apparently. Roughly. This is 72 to 83 billion. And also CNN, the even though Warner Brothers owns that branch and whatnot, they plan to separate entirely as another company, I believe. But Netflix has struck a deal to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery TV and film studios and its streaming assets, a massive consolidation that could reshape how movies and series are produced, distributed, and consumed globally. The move signals a major shift in the entertainment and streaming business. They're going to reshuffle a lot. How much are people watching Warner Brothers these days? You know what I mean? I don't know that. Animaniacs, they haven't renewed that in a while. You know what I mean? That's all that I can think of when I'm thinking of Warner Brothers. I'm like, oh yeah, it's because they live in the tower. Of course I would associate that with them. It's gonna be a weird time to live. I feel like it's gonna get thrown the monopoly accusation quite a bit, which there's arguments to be made. There's a lot of arguments to be made, probably. There's a lot of conversation around this area, and if you want my personal take, I don't think it's good. I don't think it's good when everything is, I don't want McDonald's to buy Burger King. I don't want Pepsi to buy Coke. I don't want, even though I love Pepsi more than Coke, I wouldn't want Pepsi to buy Coke, because you need diversity of ideas, you need diversity of business ideals. If Pepsi didn't make that one ad where they claimed that they would solve everything, they would be at protests and solve racism if you just handed a cop a Pepsi and, he wouldn't beat you with a baton, but you just, you dance in your jean jacket and then, the life is good. I love Pepsi so much, but they've made some of the strangest moves in marketing, but I love them so much. They're my favorite. I love them more than Coke. I love them more than anything. Pepsi's just baller. But I need them to be separate. I need them to be different. Even though they could be inarguably maybe more successful if they joined forces with Coke, I don't believe it to be good for the market. You need wide-ranging ideas. You need people to drive down each other's prices. You need that. It's essential. Markets rise, the dollar weakens as investors eye potential Federal Reserve rate cut. Global stock markets climbed while U.S. dollar slid as investors speculated the Fed might cut interest rates soon, reflecting softer U.S. economic data and rising hopes for easing monetary policy. Very fascinating, right? don't make any major money moves and you'll be all right. Kremlin says that Russia is encouraged by talks with the U.S., signals willingness for further engagement on Ukraine, but conditions remain fraught. Following the high-level discussions between Russia and the U.S. envoys, the Kremlin publicly expressed optimism and openness about continuing negotiations. Still, though, Russia reaffirms its demands over control of Ukraine's Donbass region and warned of military operations if conditions are unmet, leaving the path forward uncertain and tense. Donbass, I mean, here, let's take a look at just how large this region would be for them to grab and take. Well, Luhansk, Donetsk, Donbass, there's arguments, and it's quite frankly, you look at the size of that nation, you go, yeah, I think you could lose it. You could lose it. It's like we're going to get a nose job, and we're just going to carve off the ugly kind of, not the ugly, I like the arches in some people, but I'm talking as if though I'm a fashion person being like, we're going to slim down your face, and we're going to do all that. That is what we're trying to do. We're just going to give Ukraine a little face job, and then everything's going to be okay. That's what it's going to be okay. I should be in the peace talks, quite frankly. U.S. plans to expand the travel ban. More than 30 countries now have been targeted, impacting immigrants and travelers alike. The administration announced that it will expand its travel ban to cover 30-plus countries deemed high-risk and a broad immigration restriction measure affecting both immigrants and visitors. The move comes amid heightened national security concerns and has drawn criticism over humanitarian fairness implications. Man, I don't know what else to say. That kind of sucks. The U.S. Citizenship and also and Immigration Services pulls back on processing green cards. Permanent residency applications for many refugees orders re-interviews. Fascinating. Refugees admitted under the prior administration are now subject to a sweeping review. Many pending applications for permanent residency green cards have been frozen, pending re-interviews, an unprecedented move that threatens long-term security for hundreds of thousands of people. If it's just to revet, I mean, why not pull them in? Why not? Why not pull them in? It's like a quarterly review. You know when your boss, and the boss is the United States in this instant, they're going to pull you into the office and they're going to go, all right, we're going to talk about your numbers. We're going to talk about, also we're going to just make sure, because we haven't seen you in a few years, we're going to make sure that you still speak solid English. We're going to make sure that you have a job. We're going to make sure that you have stable living place. We're going to make sure that you're good. We're going to make sure that your papers are also all in order. You know what I mean? That you didn't have anything sus. You didn't marry your brother to get here. You didn't do anything weird. We're going to do that. We're going to make sure that you're good. And then by the time that, you comb through all the details, some of them are going to get sent back. Some of them won't. You never know. Things are just interesting. We're living in a weird time, aren't we? Growing scrutiny of U.S. counter-narcotic boat strikes, backlash over alleged unlawful killings of lack of transparency. The U.S. airstrikes, as we all know, on suspected drug-carrying vessels, including the one that reportedly killed several survivors clinging to the destroyed boat, have prompted outrage and congressional concern. Critics say that the strike may constitute unlawful killings and demand accountability and a review of U.S. maritime strike policies. I'm not a fan of the Pirates of the Caribbean being destroyed for this. I'm a Minnesotan. I love Somali pirates as much as the next guy, but Caribbean pirates I do not have a sympathy for. I'm like, listen, you're bringing drugs, you're bringing crime, and you're bringing rum, you're bringing Jack Sparrow, you're bringing giant squid, you're bringing crime, you're bringing the English, you're bringing the sugar trade, you're bringing Dead Man's Chest, you're bringing Davy Jones' Locker into our beautiful Miami ports, and it's disgusting. Quite frankly, it's disgusting, and we got to cut it off. It's awful. Folks, some European broadcasters boycott Eurovision Song Contest over Israelis' participation. Spotlight on human rights and geopolitics. Broadcasters from countries including Ireland, as they like to pronounce it, Spain, Slovenia, and the Netherlands, announced that they will boycott Eurovision in 2026 in protest of Israel's participation, citing concerns over human rights violations in Gaza. The boycott underscores how global popular culture is increasingly intersecting with global political tensions. I don't watch Eurovision. I don't think that those countries really listen to it. If you've actually tuned into Eurovision, I mean, first things first, don't. It's like Alexa versus Siri in trying to impersonate a Bjork. It is an odd bojangle of all of those folks up there that just they're listen, their entire continent is the size of our country, and I'm sure that they don't feel great about that. But the talent, I will say, that comes from that continent, well, there's not much to say for that either, but like not ever since the Beatles at least. But there's a lot of talent that comes from that region. But the musically, it's just not a lot, and it's the synthy pop. It's not anything challenging. Listen, Eurovision is not celebrating classical artists. Mozart and Bach are not performing at these. This is not like celebrating Austria's best whatever, because they're dead and nobody is doing shit like them nowadays. So I'm not a big fan of Eurovision. Maybe you are. That's okay. I personally, it's not a big loss to me. I know that people don't like Israel. I know that they're like, but let's boycott Wonder Woman because of Israel, because she's Israeli. But I don't know if I can get behind that one exactly. But whatever. Political pressure builds globally for Venezuela. Elements within Cuban regime reportedly reached out to U.S. about Nicolas Maduro. Inside sources suggest factions within Cuba's government have made contact with U.S. officials regarding Maduro, a sign of shifting allegiances and alliance pressure on Venezuela's leadership. The development may signal cracks in the region's support for Maduro's regime. Communism is not on the menu, maybe. I mean, coming from Cuba, of all places, that is kind of very, very, very curious. And then this one is very interesting, folks. And it's the final one before our third story. Not even Ring or Nest cameras are good enough to keep your home safe anymore. Criminals are buying Wi-Fi jammers to crash home security devices. This is something we all got to worry about. It's Vivinet. It's all of those like second-party devices. If you do not have a wired like within your system, like what's the CCTV? If you don't have one of those types of systems, I'm not sure you're going to be 100% safe from what these crooks are cooking up these days. Let's take a look at this clip from NBC News.
This doorbell camera video shows what Bel Air, Texas police say are skilled thieves approaching a suburban home. But look what happens as they get closer. The camera starts to glitch and the picture warps, all because police say the thieves are using a jammer, a small device that disables a home's Wi-Fi. It's something security systems rely on.
They're not hard to get. I think they cost about $60 or $70. These jammers usually work for a very short range, 10 to 20 feet.
Police say the use of Wi-Fi jammers is growing, ramping up just as the holiday season peaks, with criminals targeting packages left on the doorstep.
These criminals are pulling up with devices that they can fit in a backpack. This guy in the footage, I'll describe it to you. There's three criminals. It is a normal not body cam footage, but it's a normal footage from someone's doorbell cam. And it's like up in the corner viewing the doorscape, and then these criminals walk in off the street. The one in the front, there's two guys walking to the sides of the house. In the background, you can see them. They're like 3 feet behind him. But the first guy walks all the way up to the camera, holds the device, or holds a backpack. It's a normal-looking backpack up to the camera. And these men, the camera kind of freezes, and then the live footage of the men walking, it like lapses and it scrambles, and it's a bizarre glitch, and you cannot identify their faces, anything like that, and the camera proceeds to fail. So these people are walking in with these. This is no longer a fantasy. This is James Bond level technology that can fit in a backpack. That is not. It's not like it cannot fit in the head of a pin or a pen or anything like that. It can't be in a flashlight or anything that small yet. But don't make no mistake. These are devices that maybe they're the size of like a small notebook. Like they are able to carry these things, and they're able to just go ahead and hold it up to the camera and crash your whole system. Suddenly you have no protection. They're not going to be able to call for you. They're not going to be able to do any of that sort of stuff. You're cooked. It's over. I don't know what to say about that, but it's nerve-wracking. Now we have another clip of this guy. He's walking up with a DoorDash bag.
Police say this thief outside Chicago went low-tech, No Wi-Fi jammer, instead a food delivery bag to disguise his reason for approaching the house. But watch what he does once at the front door, stuffing packages into the bag and then running when the family returns.
They got spooked and the driver warned him, gave him a couple honks to let him know that we were pulling in, and then he ran.
Security experts say to protect your deliveries,
The first thing is you can get a hardwired system that is not dependent on Wi-Fi.
plus consider a locking parcel box, schedule deliveries for when you're home, and opt for a camera that records on an SD card. In the end, the video thieves hope to distort may be exactly what leads police back to them. Adrian Bronis, NBC News.
We thank you for watching.
Shh. You don't thank me for watching. I'm good. Folks, that's really scary, and you keep an eye on it. Get a better security system that cannot be faltered by these folks. Make sure it records in ways that they are going to be able to identify these criminals. And I would recommend arm yourselves if you are not of the mentally ill variety, if you are not of the crazy variety. Go ahead, maybe take some time at a gun range, maybe go practice, go get familiar with these things. That's one of the best ways. Listen, if you treat guns with unfamiliarity and you treat them with fear, then you're actually more likely to end up killing yourself with it. So, make sure that you're ready to defend yourself, because there's certain instances where these people are like, listen, I know a lot of women who personally they've told to me that they are like, if some 200-pound man comes into my apartment or so is at my front door, I'm like 5'2". I can't do anything about it. I would rather have a means to defend myself in order to make myself feel safe, to where I know he can't do anything. And I respect that, especially if you live in a area where maybe it's not the safest, because there are areas like that, rural or urban, any of them, any setting. There can be areas that you just don't trust your neighbors exactly. That's unfortunate, but certain people find themselves in unfortunate situations. I'd advise them to get out of them, but I understand that the world is tough right now. But you got to do your best. But find your way to make yourself feel safe in whatever means you are. Don't be a nut. Don't be crazy. But just be safe. That's all that I can say to people. Folks, our final story. What's at stake with the upcoming Trump v. Slaughter before the Supreme Court of the United States? The case that many legal commentators are now treating as a major test of presidential power over independent federal agencies. Folks, if you don't know about the core of the case here, in March 2025, the president, Donald J. Trump, he dismissed Federal Trade Commission commissioner, it's kind of a joke, you know what I mean, Rebecca Kelly Slaughter, before her term expired, even though the statute established at FTC is that FTC commissioners can only be removed for cause, quote unquote, for cause, such as inefficiency, negligence of duty, or malfeasance. Slaughter sued, arguing that her removal violated the statutory protections, and the lower court ruled in her favor. But in response, the Biden administration, now Trump's, filed an emergency appeal. This happened, at the time when, whatever. The Supreme Court granted a review. The central legal question before the court now is whether those for-cause removal protections violate the constitutional principle of separation of powers by restricting the president's ability to control executive branch officials. If the court rules in favor of the administration, it would likely overturn a nearly 90-year-old precedent. Not president, precedent with a C. That precedent is Humphrey's Executor v. United States in 1935, in which the court held that Congress may create independent agencies like the FTC, whose leaders are insulated from presidential removal except for cause, based on the idea that these agencies exercise quasi-judicial or quasi-legislative, but are not just quasi-judicial, but quasi-legislative, not purely executive functions. Under Humphrey's Executor, the FTC and similar agencies operate with a degree of autonomy to prevent undue political influence over rulemaking, investigations, and enforcement decisions, all that sort of stuff, by whatever administration may be in power. It could be Trump's, it could be anybody's. Supporters of the Trump administration's position, invoking the so-called unitary executive theory, argue that because of modern independent agencies, including the FTC, they now carry out broad executive tasks, rulemaking, enforcement, adjudication, and investigations. Their leaders should be subject to presidential control. Meanwhile, critics warned that by stripping away removal protections, it would undermine the independence of regulatory bodies, politicize their decisions, and erode the checks and balances meant to prevent an abuse of executive power. If the Supreme Court overturns Humphrey's executor via United States, the result could massively shift how the federal agencies operate, giving the president far greater power to control or replace leadership at dozens of agencies, not just the FTC. That could change the balance of power between Congress, the presidency, and the institutions designed to regulate everything from financial markets to workplace safety. In effect, the decision may redefine the scope of executive authority for decades to come. Let's look at this clip from CBS News to get a clear picture of it.
Supreme Court, folks, where justices are hearing a case today that could determine how much power the president has over traditionally independent federal agencies. The case is over the firing of former Federal Trade Commission head Rebecca Kelly Slaughter. President Trump dismissed her in March, but lower courts ruled he did not have the power to remove her. The Supreme Court temporarily upheld the firing while it considers the case.
The message is, do exactly what I want, or you're going to lose your jobs. And that is really, really in violation of the fundamental principle that the law should be administered without fear or favor. And specifically, that means without fear of getting fired for failure to do a favor for the president's friends and allies.
All right, CBS News legal contributor and Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson joins me now to talk about this. Jessica, it's good to see you on this Monday. So, break down for our viewers, what are both sides arguing here?
So the president is arguing that he's the head of the executive branch and he gets to hire and fire people who work in the executive branch.
Essentially, you're fired. You know what he was known for back in the early days. That's what everybody loved him for inadvertently. You know what I mean? I remember I would catch clips of The Apprentice. I would catch it on TV when I was a kid and whatnot. You sit down and you watch it for a minute and you're like, oh my god, this is kind of like his aura is unchallenged. These people, they just grovel to him. You know what I mean? And then the theme song, money, 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 money. It's unchallenged aura, and that's for some reason what a lot of people still have in their heads when they picture this guy. They have the jets, him walking away, looking all cool. That's it. You know what I mean? That's the whole agenda. That was the campaign. That was his policies, essentially.
This is a version of something called the unitary executive theory. Basically, he's on the top of that pyramid that is the executive branch, and he gets to make decisions almost with unfettered discretion. Then the other side, Slaughter, is arguing that Congress has said that Congress wants the FTC and many other agencies to have at least some independence. And that means the president can only remove people for cause, not at will. And that's really what the court is going to look at, whether or not Congress can essentially throw a hurdle up and say, Mr. President, you can't remove somebody just because you want to. You have to find a reason to remove them.
So it's so interesting to me, Jessica, that in this ruling, the Supreme Court may actually transfer a vast power to the President of the United States. And what I find surprising about that is most of these conservative justices say that they are constitutionalists, that they look at the text of the Constitution, and that's how they think about the cases that come before the court. But the Constitution, and I'm not a lawyer, you are, as far as I understand, doesn't explicitly grant the president any such authority. And I guess over like 100 years ago, I thought the court unanimously agreed and rejected an argument that the president possessed it. Am I wrong on that?
Not over 100 years ago.
You're exactly right. As always, you don't need to qualify with I'm not a lawyer. You're citing to Humphrey's Executor, which is the precedent at issue here. I love this question, and I love the question because, as you point out...
I love the question because it's a bit of a softball.
The conservatives on the court are
I can knock it out of the park.
Meaning they focus on the text of the Constitution and what it means at the time that it was written. And I think they would say not that we are transferring power to the executive, but that we're righting a wrong, that we previously gave Congress this power, we incorrectly took it away from a president, whereas when you look at the language of the Constitution and you look at the grant of authority to, of course, we should remind everybody, not just this president, any president, it envisions the idea that the president gets to constitute the executive branch.
really, really interesting. Jessica, I certainly hope we'll have you back when the justices render that decision. Jessica Levinson, always great to have you, my friend. Thank you very much.
What I like about originalists and constitutionalists and whatnot, I like them. Listen, I like, who's the one that RBG murdered with a pillow? Antonin Scalia. I like those fellas, you know what I mean? I enjoy a nice old constitutionalist who goes, I like it by the document. And guess what, by the document? We're not going to refer to the parts where it refers to the institutions of slavery or anything, or to keep anything like that, or to whatever. We're not going to reference any of that. We're going to reference instances where the founders had it all right. You know what I mean? They had it all right, except for where they didn't. I love the founders, but yeah, some of them owned slaves, and that's okay. That's chill, because some of them had real aura. You know what I mean? Wooden teeth and all. It was mostly donkey teeth and the teeth from his slaves, but whatever. Folks, whatever. It's a beautiful Monday, and we want to call it for this episode because I don't want to take up too much of your time. I hope that you have a good rest of the start of your week. You know what I mean? I'm glad that you stuck around as much as you did. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you come back for more later. Subscribe if you want more. Like if you liked it. This has been your Brain on Air with Ollie Vogt Larson. Thank you all so much for listening, and bye-bye.